Here we are. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hanging Out with Mad Mimi. We are here every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, so feel free to come back and check out our series. Today we're here with Alex Sirota from NewPath Consulting. Hello, Alex.
Hi, everyone.
I'm joined by Mira as well. Hi, Mira. If you guys have any questions for Alex or Mira or I, just feel free to hit that Q&A button, which should be on the top right of your screen, depending on which way you're looking at me right now. If you don't see it, there might be a little grid you can hit instead. So I guess let's get right to it. Hi, Alex. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. I'm in snowy and very, very cold Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, boy. Nice. Well, I hope that our hangout can warm everybody up. Alex, do you want to tell us a little bit sort of about yourself and NewPath Consulting itself and how you sort of got involved in that and what you do with it?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mira and Becca, for having me on. It's just an honor to be working with you folks. We've been using Mad Mimi for years and intend to do so for many, many more. I started NewPath Consulting about 4 years ago, and with a sort of idea that small businesses deserve better than what they're getting right now. Better support, better service, and essentially a better way to grow. My background is in computer science. I worked for Apple for first 3 years of my career in Cupertino and in Austin, Texas, and did a lot of programming and development. I started noticing about 5 years ago that small businesses are not that well served by the software products that are out there. There's so many of them, and they're so well designed, but seemingly small businesses have a problem of actually taking advantage of all the features and functions to help them meet their goals. And so started doing some research and started NewPath Consulting. That's kind of where we're at, and I look forward to talking to all of you about the things that we do and some of our plans, and also the kind of experience I've had that maybe it'll be interesting to people on the call.
Yeah, Alex, can you tell us a little bit about? I mean, you mentioned Apple, but sort of what your experience was in your exposure to tech solutions and in the way that small businesses, or even however you were working with clients and customers at the time, and how that all led up to the way that you structured NewPath Consulting and the way that you approach your clients today.
Yeah, I worked. I worked in technology companies for the first 5 or 6 years of my life. Apple, and then I worked for a couple of startups where we're sort of building solutions for, frankly, for the elite. This is the way I would call it. People that are in the know, they kind of know products, or if they don't, they're capable of learning. There is a very, there are people that are very comfortable with technology, right? Of any kind. When I started working with not-for-profit organizations in 2001, I was doing some consulting work, helping build systems to manage lots of websites, kind of like content management systems before systems like WordPress were around. I noticed that organizations have challenges of maintaining their own systems. Mm-hmm. And as they develop solutions, the relationship is a little bit uneven, meaning that an organization either does one of two things. A small business, they either invest in technology to a very high degree. It could be such a large investment that it's potentially a big chunk of their revenue, and then they kind of hope and pray that they're going to get this great return out of it. Mm-hmm. Or they don't do any of that at all. They don't invest in technology whatsoever to help them run their business, hoping that the sort of their blood, sweat, and tears are going to make them competitive. And I think before the internet was sort of, really I think around 2010 or so, after a few years of the mobile phones, I think up until then, I don't think small businesses took technology that seriously outside of getting a computer with Microsoft Office and an email account. Just kind of that sort of idea. And when I talk about small businesses, I'm talking about companies less than 50 employees. They, unless they were a technology company, they had a very particular way of doing things, and they invested in a either all or nothing kind of thing is the way I describe it. And really, that's the way that technology really was bought and sold. You either bought a computer and you bought that box and you paid for it up front, and that's, you know, and then it was up to you to get the value out of that product, up to the customer to get the value. And I think about a few years ago, I would say around the time that Mad Mimi and other products that we support came out, I think there was the realization that there's almost like a democratization of software, so that anybody could use it. You don't have to be technically astute. You don't have to be a developer. You know, any small business or organization could subscribe, and that was a big change in terms of how they bought it. They would rent it or even try it for free, and then see if they can extract value over time. So as opposed to having this sort of unequal, it's essentially a matter of risk. Instead of having to take all the risk up front and trying to get some value out of, let's say, a whole new website or e-commerce solution, they're going to try it before they buy it and then see what happens. And I think that's much better suited to small businesses because they don't have the ability to invest.
So now you mentioned, oh, sorry, I'm not go here. I'm not sure where that is. Okay, sorry. You mentioned that there's this class of businesses that might be the nonprofits, it's just the folks who don't really, they may not know, or they just hope that they don't need it, and that you know, their hard work will just pay off and they won't need to invest in tech solutions. Are you finding that with this new trend of the subscribe and of the more accessible solutions, are they more aware of these? Or is it still that there is a class of businesses that don't know that they need this stuff?
Oh, I mean, there are 25 million small businesses in North America, give or take. I mean, the majority of them are in the United States. This is some estimates that have, there might be even more. You know, I mean, that's a huge amount of businesses, right? I think probably, and this is just my guess, like, I think probably less than 1% of them have recognized the power of some of the products and tools that are out there, and they are continuously evolving. We are after the iPhone was introduced. This is kind of my personal theory. After the iPhone was introduced in 2007, and then a few years after, where there was like a lot of mobile phones, there was a sort of this idea of that technology is an enabler, and it's not just like what that, you know, really smart geek over there, nerd, knows how to use. We use all of it. And so you go to, I noticed this when I would go to like airports or coffee shops, right? It was like if you see a laptop in a coffee shop, it would be like, whoa, that's a huge deal. And if they had Wi-Fi, it literally, I think in the last 5 years, and it happened to be at the same time as these companies like Mad Mimi and like FormStack and TypePad, and I think there's probably 5,000 or 6,000 products out there now. There's just literally like a huge ecosystem of products developed for small businesses, and that happened roughly at the same time. So a few things happened, I think. One is the software business models changed, the way they built in products that were web-based, easy to use. They didn't have a huge amount of features. They were designed for a non-technical customer. They could try before you buy. And the modern web, the Web 2.0, the idea of much better user interfaces, much more responsive designs, and faster internet access. Like, we didn't have fast internet access, and we still don't in many places, in Canada for sure, but in a lot of urban areas and in a lot of rural areas now, we have, you know, 10, 15, 20 megabit per second internet, which is required to use some of these products that are in the cloud or on the web. And that all those things had to come into place before there was this acceptance. And I think that foundation was kind of laid over the last 5 years. And I think only now, believe it or not, like we think like, oh, there's all this great stuff that's happened. But I actually have a firm belief that only now, because of this foundation being laid, companies will start to recognize that they should be taking advantage of it. And a lot of them have. A lot of small businesses already have, but the majority, I think well over 99% of them have not.
Totally. I like how you put it as the democratization of these tools and of the internet. It's a really cool term, because it really does seem to apply, pretty directly to how it's easier for everybody now to sort of get their own piece of the pie and really stake their own claim. And these tools can help, the smallest business to the largest one, and it's sort of really flatten the playing field, which I think is great. Excuse me. Have you run into any problems? I mean, I know that this is really a great time as a small business owner to sort of get all these tools, but are there sort of a give and a take with these kinds of things? Are they mostly only doing good things, or are there roadblocks that you hit along the way?
Well, I think that the give and take is, in the end, just like it was before, is it actually accomplishing anything? So there are 5, I'm on this website called g2crowd.com, a company in Chicago, that's kind of like the Yelp for these products. Right. So Matt Mimi is in there. There are 5,000 products and services in there and 25,000 reviews. Imagine somebody having to select something from a menu that large. I mean, how do you choose?
Right.
How do you choose from 15 email marketing systems, at least, 20 forms builders, 20 content management systems? There's so many products and categories of products now. It's bewildering, really.
I'm always surprised too by how much of the same thing there is. Everyone has their own little unique spin on it. But even if you go to our integrations page, we have integrations with 12 form builders, 12 landing page builders, and they're all the same. So that question of how do you choose is brilliant, and it's necessary.
And I come back to, so I have this, I'll tell you a little story about democratization. So I was product manager at a company called Flow Network in 1999 and 2000. This is before we knew. This is really before broadband really was widely accessible. Forget about mobile phones and data, right? This is like just when broadband started becoming popular. Now, large companies had fast internet connections, but like companies had internet connections like I have at home now, like 25 megabits per second would be like an amazing corporate internet connection for a company the size of Barnes & Noble, for example. So I worked at an email marketing company. That's just the scale of how things have changed. I think people need to really recognize that. But I worked at a Flow Network, a company in Toronto that sent emails just like Mad Mimi did and does. We created custom emails that were personalized, you track them, all the same technology, but done in a way that is not controlled by the end user, in the sense that our customers, if they wanted to send a campaign to 1 million people, they were afraid to click the button that says launch this campaign. I'm serious. Mm-hmm. Like, we had 200 account managers that would take your database list and your HTML email or your template, and they would test it, and they would do all that as on behalf of the customer for a variety of reasons. There was technology reasons and everything, and we charged $16.50 per 1,000 emails. We didn't charge based on the size of the database. We charged on how many emails you sent, because the cost was on bandwidth, and it was exorbitant, right? That was our price list. And of course, if you send more emails, you get a better deal. But it wasn't based on your mailing list size, like Mad Mimi's pricing is.
Right.
And so,
but just as a comparison, we do also we do also have a price tier that includes per email, and it's 40 cents per 1,000 email.
There you go. So our best deal was $2 per 1,000. So that's how things have changed. So anything that you want to do now, you can pretty much do. So the question becomes, and this is the $64 million question: what should you do? When should you do it? And how does it actually help your bottom line for your business?
Right.
Because now, as opposed to like having all of these different, not having access to these solutions, it's exactly the opposite. There's a what do you call it? Embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
So how do you approach that kind of question with your clients? I mean, your clients are small businesses, as most of ours are as well at Mad but you're looking at the whole suite of what they could do. So how do you go about helping them answer those questions?
The first thing is I recognize that any small business, an entrepreneur, an owner, or even a small an not-for-profit has to wear multiple hats, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you read any business book, marketing and sales are primarily of primary importance. Operations and customer support, development of new products and ideas. Those are all hats that we wear. Financing and accounting and invoicing. Those are all hats that every entrepreneur wears. And what's interesting, well, I noticed this when I started doing the research into running this business, is that these solutions, email marketing fits under marketing. Marketing automation is under marketing and sales. A CRM system, customer relationship management, is under sales and somewhat operations. They all support one or more of those hats. So these solutions are like building blocks to support an entrepreneur or owners and eventually a whole business enterprise, the efforts that they do. And usually you built and kind of cobbled these solutions together internally so people would invoice with a spreadsheet or Microsoft Word. Now if you have a piece of software like FreshBooks, which is one of the products that we help our customers set up,
and we have an integration for.
What's that?
And we have an integration for.
No, you do. You're able to create an invoice electronically, present it to your customers electronically or by paper, have it paid for electronically. You can have reminders. So all of these things now you used to do in a way that wasn't really scalable, or you may have forgotten, and you were like you're not automating the way that you're in your business, and now you can do that. So the question is, under what circumstances and what should you do depending on this where your business is. So what we identified is businesses they start immature and they grow in maturity. They either go up or out. They either survive and they thrive, or they kind of decrease and eventually die. That's just the reality of it. So if you want to succeed, there is a life cycle of a business. When it starts, when it grows, how many customers they bring on, and at every part of that life cycle, there is an opportunity to bring in certain products, and so we help companies plan that evolution and then use the right solutions at the right time.
Is there any specific process you go through with your clients to determine like where they are, or is that something that you find is just obvious by talking to them, or is it based on time? How do you figure that out with them?
Yeah, so we're taking a fairly ambitious approach. We took a cue on our pricing directly off the vendors whose products we support. We saw that the software was being sold basically by features, by functionality, and in different price points, in different monthly plans. And so I sort of created this hypothesis and said, what if we provided service exactly how those products are sold, right? As opposed to charging for an upfront project with a start, beginning, end time, and having like 50% up front, the typical kind of stuff the consulting companies do. I decided to have tiers of service that encompass the products that I think a small business could use at every part of their life cycle, and charge at those different tiers. And the way that we engage is we have an onboarding process, and if anyone's interested, I could show a little bit of the spreadsheet maybe a little bit later on. But we take our customers through a process by which they set strategic goals. So we do what normally a large company would do with their CEO and their board of directors. We do that for small businesses because small businesses are very bad usually at setting goals that they actually follow. They usually don't write business plans, and if they do write business plans, they just sit there on a folder, never get looked at. But the key to success, we think, is creating a plan that's sort of it's tangible, but it's doable, and setting business goals and working with us to identify those goals, identify the measures, and then just finding the products that help you. I'll give you an example. Most small businesses don't have a mailing list. This is something we found completely by accident. And when I say a mailing list, I mean they might even have a Christmas card or holiday card list
Right.
of physical addresses, but most small businesses do not have an email mailing list.
Wow.
Now, that is a lot, right? Can you imagine? But the reality is that they do, actually. They do have a mailing list.
Right.
Even the customers that they've worked with, if they call them up and say, can I have your email address?
Yeah.
So I can send you a newsletter. You can have a mailing list of 10 people.
Yep.
It's just a matter of knowing when to use it.
Exactly. So and so that's one example. When I have customers brought on, I first of all I ask them, do you know what your website, for example, is doing? It's just so amazing. Like all of these tools are out there, but putting the pieces together really just requires some execution. Most people don't have an accurate idea of what's happening on their website. When they get traffic, what's that?
Are there any particular tools that you find yourself are the most useful? Maybe not necessarily ones that you want your clients to use, but in terms of your day-to-day managing all of those folks, are there any tools that you sort of find totally indispensable? Or
Well, the first one is actually, believe it or not, is a spreadsheet of strategic goals and measures and what products I'm using to actually deliver that. Those strategic goals could be things like increase your website traffic in this year by 100%, double your website traffic. And so when I say that, people are like, how am I going to double my website traffic? Well, if you get 50, 100 visits a month, it's not really that hard to do.
yeah.
Right. The first step would be knowing what your website traffic is.
Right. Exactly. So what I say is like those tools. I'm really low tech actually. Right. You see my gray hair, right? Like, it's like there's so much sort of assumptions that people make and small business owners make. I know I did when I started. Is basically just coming down and saying some goals and objectives and say I'm going to have this many customers by this year, and here's how technology can help me do that.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing what your website traffic is and was it growing or declining is a direct reflection of, especially in 2015, it's a direct reflection by the awareness of your company. Mm-hmm. Now, if you've never had a website before, you can't expect it to have tons of traffic. But year over year, you should expect to see, if you're doing something right, anything right, you should expect to see an increase in traffic. And so when I talk to my customers, the first thing we do, I ask them, do you have any kind of website traffic analysis of your products? Mm-hmm. And inevitably the question is, what is that? I'm serious. And so just recently I have a new customer, and they were set up on a system that supported Google Analytics right out of the box, no coding. You just have to put your little Google Analytics code in, and they hadn't done that, and they've been running for since 2009, for 5 years.
Yeah.
So they don't know. And when we turned it on in 1 week, we saw that one blog post from 4 years ago is as high in terms of traffic as their homepage.
Wow.
Which is totally unusual.
That's really cool stuff to find out.
Yeah.
And there's a reason, because of the kind of work that they do. That blog post is directly written from the perspective of their target customer. All their other blog posts were not. And so these kind of little realizations is the kind of things that support strategic goals. Mm. So if you want, I wanted to double my traffic in 1 year, you have to write more blog posts like this. Right? That's
and it's the kind of thing that sounds, to us here might sound really simple, but for someone who's just getting started or just trying to revamp, they could look at those numbers and not know what they mean. So it comes really handy to have somebody to tell you, this is what to do with this now. It's not just the tools that help. It's, having for somebody who can really read through it the right way and translate, especially for somebody who's new at it. So
there's another demographic shift that I've noticed, and that's older seniors, baby boomers, using technology more than ever before. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that I did not set out to do this when I started this company, but right now, as it stands, 100% of my customers are 50 years old or older. The owner.
Cool.
And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just because of my bedside manner or what it is, or maybe that's just who I'm. I'm no spring chicken myself, but it's interesting because I could see their excitement around doing something interesting, maybe having a second career and running a business, and they're very open to this technology. And so, if you think about all these cool products that are people on Twitter find out about, or they get referrals or recommendations, they're primarily, people that know about them are primarily in their 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s. But there's this huge wave of senior business owners that have run businesses for many years that may have seen competitive pressures, that may want to branch out, and it's a great opportunity for them, right?
Do you see anything different about that group versus? I mean, you say 100% of your clients right now are 50 plus, but do you imagine, I guess, that there would be anything different about how they manage their businesses, or how you interact with them at all, or how you provide your service because of that?
Yeah, because they have something to lose.
Ah, interesting.
They're in a position where they may be 100% happy with what they're doing. They may not be, but they if you start to rock the boat, it may defocus them from what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of convincing that has to go on. Right? Mm-hmm. I have to show that these solutions actually make a difference. So one of our customers is a band, a community band, and they started without a website, no email list. They just had some members. They were doing concerts. They sold everything basically hand to hand. So if they had a concert, all the people in the band would buy a certain amount of tickets. They would prepay for those tickets, and they would have to either give them away or resell them for the cover price.
Wow.
So I'm in this band. I was volunteering, and I play trumpet in this band. And I went to the executive director, she's in her early 60s, and I said, let's try collecting email addresses from people in the band. Not even the people that come to the concerts, because we knew nothing about them. Mm. But people in the band. She was like, why would we need that? Well, we could send them a newsletter and tell them when the next concert is. These are people in our organization, right? But some of them are, in their 70s and 80s, right? So a little reminder may be helpful. We'll see how many people have an email address, right? Yeah. Just basic stuff like that. So in 4 years, fast forward, they sell 80% of their sponsorships and tickets online. They have well over 1,500 people on their mailing list, which is primarily all the patrons that buy tickets online. So it's this kind of like change that's occurring that really a lot of it takes some convincing.
Have you also seen growth through that as well? I mean, you mentioned a shift in the percentage or in the business moving online, but has there also been a growth because of that move too?
Well, I mean, I can only speak for the customers who successfully use online to, especially those offline businesses. They don't really need an online presence per se. The ones that actually get one and supplement whatever they do with an online presence, which is usually much more than just a simple website. Mm. They improve the way they operate. They retain customers. They have a way to grow their customer base. And they may even identify who their best customers are, so that they can offer new services. So it really comes down to the data that in the end it's all about that information, being comfortable with the data that tells you your business is going up or it's going sideways or it's going down, right? It's reflected. All of this software almost always has an analytic component to it. Every single piece of software I have that I use has some kind of an analytic component. And so when you look at that, you can test and do things you never were able to do before. If somebody comes into your store and they don't buy something, you don't really know why they didn't buy. Now you can start to kind of identify that. You may not be 100% know for sure, but you can at least know the people that click on your emails or open them.
Right,
and the ones
right.
That
You put a story together.
Yeah.
So wait, let's talk about. Becca had mentioned this a little bit before, but like specific tools. Can you just pull like a few really specific examples of things that either you recommend or that you really like or that you're discovering new or anything like that? But specific tools that you use or that you recommend to your clients to do all of this kind of generic stuff that we've been talking about.
Sure, sure. To make it real. Well, the first thing is I used a very simple criteria to choose the products to begin with. So I was looking at my target customers, small businesses, and I felt that they did not want complexity. So I chose products that were very easy to learn. In fact, I kind of had to become familiar and comfortable with them in about 30 to 45 minutes, me personally. It's a pretty high.
That was the criteria?
Yeah, that's a pretty high bar to set, right?
So
Yeah.
Imagine you sign up for something, you try it out, and 30 to 45 minutes, I feel like this is going to work, right? I'm going to be productive with it, and I feel like so. Email marketing solutions, like, well, why Mad Mimi over something else? Well, I don't want a lot of options because I think my customers don't want a lot of options. It's simple as that.
Yeah, and especially for a small business owner, I feel like, someone who's doing 10 things in the day doesn't want to spend 4 hours figuring out how to make something work. So that sort of makes sense to me. Yeah.
And then there's some sort of things that this is the best way to do things. Don't try to change things that are well tread. Maybe in a few years there'll be a different way to do things. But I was really impressed about the layout of Mad Mimi's email editor. It doesn't allow you to do too many crazy things.
Right.
Right? And so those are the kind of things I look for in all the products. So that was the first criteria. The second criteria was you guys. The second criteria was each product had to have awesome support. Because when I'm helping my customers, if I'm at my wit's end, I need to be able to escalate to a support vendor and get reasonable support. Either to say, you can't do this, or here's how you do it, or here's a couple of knowledge-based articles to look at. And so that whole operation had to be based around support. And you know what? Believe it or not, out of 5,000 products, I didn't test every single one, but I probably looked at about 100. Wow. It's not always that they have great support. Yep. Because the companies are not necessarily built around great support.
Yeah.
Those are two factors. I didn't care about the price. I really didn't. I knew that I wanted an easy-to-use product that a customer could use if they wanted to, or that we could, and it had great support. So outside of Mad Mimi, TypePad is the blogging content management solution we use. Although recently we started doing WordPress for some of the high-end customers, but I still believe TypePad is an excellent, perfect solution to run a website or a blog. It's a company in San Francisco. It was one of the original sort of blogging solutions. Again, it's very easy to use, and they have good support. You can run our website for NewPathConsulting.com runs on this product, and if you look at it, it looks like a WordPress site. It's a really interesting system, and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but most small businesses don't need that.
Sure.
Another really cool product is FormStack, company out of Indianapolis, that has an amazing forms builder. And one of the reasons why we chose separate products as opposed to like one monolithic product is that our businesses do require different kinds of solutions. So I don't want to be in a position where a business says, I want to do this piece, and I give them this all-in-one solution, and then they have to kind of pick their way through it and find out what they use and what they don't. I'd like to support and introduce these products almost directly related to when they need them. So we offer a form with every one of our plans. And we say, if your website doesn't have even a contact form or a quote form or some sort of way for a person to take the next step, even if nobody's ever filled that out, there will be one day when somebody will want to do that, and if you don't have that and they can't do it, you've lost a potential customer.
Yep.
So we put a form in, a newsletter sign-up form. So it kind of goes on from there, but again, it's tied to a specific objectives that they want to reach, and these products are introduced essentially customized for every single customer. I don't say, well, you need to use all these products right from the get-go. They need to kind of get familiar with them, and that's how we onboard somebody.
Nice. Now we have a few minutes left. We're just about at time, but I'm wondering if you can. I sort of want to go big towards the end. Is there any kind of like your best advice for small businesses, or maybe it's something that you see small businesses, you see a mistake you see them making time and time again, or just sort of like an overarching sort of like advice or trick or tip or tool or something for these folks who are mostly your clients?
It's a good question. Well, I mean, it's actually quite easy to lose focus these days.
We're all easy.
Right? Like, it's really easy to lose focus. It's just so, there's so many different, shiny objects out there, around every corner, right? And you kind of, I don't think it's a good idea to try to solve a problem that you may have that you don't even have identified yet with yet another product. Right? Less is more to some extent, in the sense that when, for example, I bring in a customer and they're like, well, we use this thing for this part, I usually say, I'm not going to use that. And I'm not going to use that because I don't know how that, it's not because I don't want to, but I don't know how it fits in your business objectives. How does it fit against what you want to get done, to the fundamentals of what is you want to accomplish? Small businesses don't usually think around that, other than, around what's happening tomorrow. But they need to think a little bit further ahead, and so those distractions can cause some harm. The other thing is actually kind of a fundamental business concept. I have this question that I ask on my qualification questionnaire on the website. It takes about 10 minutes to fill out. It's a very simple question. And the question I read, I got this question from a Wall Street Journal article on entrepreneurship probably about 10 years ago. It's been a while. But it really stuck with me for all these years, and I decided to use it as part of the qualifications to kind of test to see if a small business owner really kind of has the right perception. And the question is as follows, and it's a multiple choice question, and it's what do you think is the most important thing or concept to an entrepreneur, to a business owner? And you have 4 choices: customer, time, money, or an idea.
Ooh. That's a tough.
What do you do with the answers then? I mean, like, how do you assess,
Well, there is one best answer. all the answers are, you could actually make a case for every single one of them, right?
I'd go with customers or ideas, but
right? And so people get put on the spot a little bit, right? Like, why are you asking this? I do this in a questionnaire, but I get a response. And if you think about a business, especially a small business, or really any business, I mean, even Apple or Procter & Gamble, or, the most important thing to a business is a customer.
Right?
Like, if you, and you can argue this, and I had people argue with me about this, but, for example, time, right? You can write that one off right away. Because we all have exactly the same amount of time in a day. Right? Time doesn't go faster and slower for some of us. Some people live 110 years, and some people only live a month. Right? So, sorry, my iPad just. So time, right? You can write that one off. So if you don't have enough time, it's probably because you're defocused, right? So that one there. If you think time is the most important, you are probably stressed out around how you manage your time. So that's a red flag for me, because that's how are we going to work together, right? How am I going to fit into this equation? Am I going to be the person that's making up for your disorganization? I don't know. So the next 2, idea and money, are kind of like together. Well, money, we all could use more money, and small business owners are very strapped. And if they don't have enough, if they think that money is the most important thing, it usually means that they don't have enough, and they're stressed out about that. And they think that somehow by the money will actually turn their business around. And
right. The more money they get, no matter what else they do, then everything will be better, which is not necessarily true.
And it's a chicken before the egg thing, right?
Absolutely.
The idea is the really bad. The idea is the really. This is the one where entrepreneurs. So there's like this whole hierarchy, right? The idea is where people mostly get screwed up, and that's Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth, which I highly recommend to everyone to check out if they run a business or thinking about running a business. It's an old book. It was written years ago, probably more than 20 years ago. But E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth, and it's a very simple idea. Michael Gerber says that even though you're a great cake baker, you make amazing cakes and cookies, it doesn't mean that you're going to be an amazing entrepreneur selling cakes and cookies.
Right.
Running a bakery. Those two do not equate. You can be amazing. You can have the best idea, the best product. It doesn't mean you can be able to sell it. That's where most small businesses that's actually the answer when I get idea. That's the most important thing. That's where most small businesses fall down. Because the most important thing is a customer. A customer will clarify, I think is the word, like it will clarify how much you get paid, what the idea is, what they're willing to buy and pay for, and they will tell you when they need it to drive the time forward.
Very true.
The customer is the goal. So whenever somebody, what's the most important thing? Almost all my customers, not all of them, said customer. And for my business, and for anybody else, sort of thinking about this, if you think that somehow one of those other things is more important, it's not. And this is I really strongly feel about this, because if you really think about it closely, if you get a customer willing to pay you, even if it's just in time, it doesn't even have to be monetarily, and willing to tell you what's wrong with your idea or how you can make it better, and they're continuously engaging, not just one-off, and they're continuously kind of involved and interested, that's important. And eventually you'll get one that's paying for you, and then you'll get 10, and then you get 100, and then you get 1 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Or you'll be okay with having 100.
Customers better than 20 bored customers who don't listen to you. Like somebody who actually cares about what you're doing and is willing to help is the most valuable thing. That's sort of the philosophy I think we go on too at Mad Mimi. Is just sort of
who was Mad Mimi's first customer?
That's a really good question.
It was Dean and Gary. They were their own customers.
They built Mimi for themselves first. They were filling their own void. So
almost every successful startup, technology startup, FreshBooks was like that for sure. I know Mike. I know he would say that. And so they built it for themselves to solve their own, to scratch their own itch, so to speak. They became their own customer. But because of that, they were tough customers probably, and then they saw that other people would follow that. And so it's not the idea of an email marketing system. It's to actually solve their problem. And this thought process is actually quite complex, and it really challenges a lot of people's assumptions.
I love it. I'm going to use that everywhere now.
It's not easy, by the way.
Yeah.
There are people that will tell you, customer, I've seen this, and then they go right back to the idea, and they like stand behind it, and they're like, this is a great idea. Another thing I read that was really interesting, and I actually gave this book away. I give books away as like a campaign, and that has been quite successful. Is a fellow by the name of Derek Sivers. You guys know who Derek Sivers is?
Do not.
Well, you should definitely check him out. Derek Sivers started a company called CD Baby in 1996.
Oh yeah. I remember them.
You do, right?
Yeah.
Before iTunes was around, he would basically get musicians, right, to send them a CD of their music, and they would create the MP3s and sell them on behalf of the musician and give them a royalty on the website. Yep. Right?
I have friends who use that, yeah.
Way before iTunes.
Yeah. Way
before iTunes. So Derek Sivers says in his book called Anything You Want, it's got this picture of a little young boy, big neck in sand. He said that ideas times execution is the multiplier effect. Really out of 100, a 10 out of 100 idea, but execute 99 out of 100 and do amazing. Think of all stuff out there. Ideas are maybe pretty good. They execute like crazy. Boom. You can have an nine idea, no execution. That multiplication of those two is kind of the sort of the fundamental. That is the customer is the as after the equal sign, right? The number of customers and how they're happy, how happy they are, and how much they refer people is idea times execution. So you have a good idea, you have to execute. So I feel like all the products they use are amazing ideas. I feel that they're executed by their companies really well. Now I have to take my idea and execute it very well.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I love that. That's like math that I can do.
Well, it's got to be easy, right? It can't be complicated.
It's very simple, and it's the kind of thing that it's sort of a big idea, but to put it that simply really kind of crystallizes it, you know, in terms of really being able to focus on a very specific goal. It's a good nugget.
Yeah, his book is Anything You Want is filled with stuff like that, right? That's the thing where I put on a whiteboard and you can like actually do a couple of equations, like, you know, a 50, a half and half idea executed reasonably well, like, not that great. You know, they're inversely related to each other, but if they're aligned, so execution is the part that NewPath delivers, right? I can't change an idea of one of my customers. I mean, I can kind of guide them, right? I can say, but it's hard for me to change them. But I hope I can help them execute it really well so that their even somewhat cruddy idea can actually be executed very well, and hopefully they'll be successful.
Totally.
So it's interesting compound execution, though, because you know you're looking for good execution in the tools that you use. You then have to use judgment in the way that you execute your use of those tools, and then you know you're helping your customer execute their idea at the same time. It's like everywhere.
It's well, see, so this is a good opportunity to kind of share. I'm not going to spend too much time. I know we only have about. I'm going to do it really quickly, okay?
Go for it.
This is a little bit of the secret sauce. Do you guys see this?
It should be up in. There you go. Yep.
Yes.
All right. So this is a spreadsheet that I give to our customers when they onboard, and we use this throughout the year. It's got yearly strategic goals, monthly tactics, and even a weekly planner template. But what we do is we try to have them put together their goals, how they measure, and a monthly check-in on those goals, and then evaluate how those work. So, like I want to have a product that does this. I actually haven't, out of all those 5,000 products, I haven't found something that will take these ideas, these strategic goals or ideas, measure them, and actually see how well they're doing based on analytics, based on orders, based on a lot of different things. But I'm using this for my own company, and I'm using this for customers, and it seems to be going pretty well. They can actually adjust this to their own sort of goals. But it's this kind of like when you write it down, it like becomes real, and you have 5 strategic goals that you want to accomplish, and people they're frozen, right?
Well, it's better than starting in the other direction of just saying I should do all of these things at once and not actually know where you're going with them. You know,
but that's how most small businesses run. If you look at a calendar of any small business, their journal, you'll find a random set of activities, and they hope that some of them are going to hit.
Yeah, I find that with and especially with people who are trying new products and who also are trying new forms of social media. It's just they want to have this thing because, well, everybody has one, right? So I'm just going to sign up and hope it works. And it's a lot of times it's just so much extra stuff that they lose sight of what the actual goal is. So having it broken down into just those 5 simple things can make a huge difference for how businesses run, definitely.
All right, so idea times execution and tools and analytics. I think that's your winning formula.
Idea times execution is very important. Customer being the primary thing that's of importance. Getting one, keeping them happy. And then the data. Analytics is like a really techie. I try to keep techie words. You know, it's amazing how language changes the conversation. Yeah. You guys know that better than anyone else. I know you do. But analytics is like The data is the information that's collected as you're doing your thing, like as your website hums along, as your email campaign are sent, reflecting on that. I have in that spreadsheet, I only showed it really quickly. I'm going to bring it up again though. I'm trying a couple of things that are a little bit unusual for my customers. So if you take a look at the weekly template, let me know when you see it.
There it is.
Every day of the week, make Monday is design on Mondays. Maybe spend some quality time designing something. Maybe one of your strategic goals. Maybe an email campaign. Design. But when I say designing, I don't mean actually crafting it. I mean designing from a very kind of design standpoint. Talk to some of your customers, what they want. Try a couple of things.
Sure, high level. More high level.
Yeah. These are your goals for I want people to focus on each day of the week to be a primary goal, because you can spend your whole day on Facebook, right? Right? But and some people do, right? I know I have, right? So physical touch is the creation on Tuesday. So that's actually create the campaign, make it happen, actually do the creative work. Wednesday is work Wednesday, execute. Talk to a customer. I had a couple. Today's Wednesday. I had a couple of executions of 2 customers that I had important work conversations around about progressing their projects along in their work and their goals. Reflect. So this is analytics right here. Thursdays, Throwback Thursday. I kind of took that from Twitter and stuff. But reflect. Look at your analytics. So what happened last week? Look at your invoices. Is there something overdue? Right. Reflect and take a time to actually do that. And then on Friday, grow. Land a new customer. Launch something for a customer. Do something on a Friday to make we have this great Friday is always like this day of accomplishment, right? In some religions, it's the end of the work week, right? Relax on Saturday, have a siesta, right? Have a nap, and then on Sunday do some service, volunteer and get out of your shell, spend some time with your kids, right? I have this sort of I don't know, this is starting to sound a little bit kind of metaphysical, but when I look at people's lives and I look at my own life, and I worked for 10 years in the Ontario government, and in November I left, and I looked at how people on the subway, Becca, I'm sure you've seen this in New York, we have a subway here too. People are coming in and they're miserable.
Yep.
Miserable. I'm like, why is that? Why is it? Because it's just this routine. That freedom and that risk taking and that excitement is missing from a lot of people's lives. So when I talk to all my customers, when I talk to them, the really good ones, the really that are successful, they want me to be their only customer and help them 7 by 24.
Of course, everybody wants that.
Everybody wants that, right? And I want them to do that, and I want them, because the tools are so awesome, I'll show them, we'll set the goals together, and they'll get that value out of our service relationship in tenfold, 100-fold. And that's kind of what I want to accomplish, right? That's the vision that I have for the business, and I think that's in some ways the vision that a lot of the software companies have, like you guys and FormStack, and I gotten to know a lot of those companies, and I was blown away that Mad Mimi was bought by GoDaddy in August. I was completely blown away because they are a huge registrar, one of the world's biggest probably, of domain names. And the domain name is the one thing my small business owners don't have usually. Mm-hmm. A lot of them use Gmail or Hotmail for their business address. And I'm like, your website is under xyz.com, but your email is not. Why is that? Well, I haven't been able to figure that out. And I'm like, that's just not right. You're not taking it seriously. That's execution, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So help them set that up. It's part of every plan, right? Get that going. And then when you guys were acquired, I was super excited. Some people were like, oh my goodness, but I was like, no, there has to be something there that's beyond just another acquisition, and in fact there is, and in fact there very much is. It appears to be the case.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, that's what we were saying before. Is it's sort of about empowerment. You know, like letting people learn themselves and be able to empower themselves with these tools, and that's part of what the acquisition does too. You know, it helps us empower more people. It's just that simple.
I'm so super excited about it. You have no idea, and I got to meet some of the GoDaddy folks virtually, and I think they're onto something. I think they're really onto like this huge small business revolution that I think will only bear fruit over the next 5 to 10 years. To be honest with you,
Totally.
As things change in a quite dramatic way, and as again the democratization continues, as these products become more woven together and easier to as people understand the modes and work, you know, as people kind of think about email marketing and marketing in general somewhat differently, there's going to be really something amazing happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. We're pretty. Thanks everyone for hanging in there with us, because this one was kind of a long one, but it was good. Thanks, Alex. We had a lot of great stuff to talk about. And I know that you have some experience with GoDaddy Pro as well as a business owner. So if anyone's interested in more about that, you can email us. You can email Alex at newpathconsulting.com. Check out his site at newpathconsulting.com. And you can always watch this episode anytime on YouTube. It'll be there forever, and we will see you next week, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you.